So the Ritualist. Needless to say, I actually really like this spec. Uh, it feels okay to use actually. I was initially pretty concerned about having the spirits tied to the shroud, and it does feel perhaps maybe a little redundant to add a shroud mechanic to the spirits. I still think I would have preferred if the spirits operated as kind of like what am I thinking? As the sand shades do for Scourge. Um, Most notably, uh, the DPS value is not all there. I think there's potential for it to being a good DPS spec, especially when you factor in the fact that it doesn't have a whole lot of boon rip potential or boon corruption potential. Not nearly as potent as, I mean, you can still get that with some of your weapon skills and stuff, but you know, part of that is with the shroud itself. It's not necessary to have that added into the spec itself, but I will say that the class feels responsive enough to be playable. I'm seeing some reports of people saying that it's a little clunky or the cooldown times aren't there. So it's really just like trying to dial in what this spec is trying to accomplish. Like, what is this trying to do? You know, is it trying to be like a DPS variant? Is it trying to be more of a offensive support variant? Like, if it can dial in on what the spec is trying to do, because not every single spec should be good at everything. I think that if it's just a little dialed in, maybe a little bit more refined on how the spec is going to behave and interact with the world. And I mean, like, if you're going to make it a DPS, give it a DPS edge to it, okay? If you're going to make it kind of offensive support, okay, so, you know, either boon uptime or what is it? Condi conversion. Something along those lines. I think overall, Necro has always been one of those classes that I feel pretty comfortable jumping into an engagement for most cases and do pretty well in. And that's just because it has a particularly good kit. If I try to do that on my Ellie, it's just going to be downstate Ellie, because Ellies are just glass cannons, let's just face it. I do kind of want to give this a shakedown in PvP, in perhaps maybe some World v World, but if I did World v World, I'd like to do some kind of like group run with that. There's still more to kind of feel out, but I already like the spec. I actually already really like this spec a lot, and I think it's a great addition to the Necro class, just in general. What are your guys' thoughts? Have you, if anybody else has played Ritualist, what are your thoughts on the spec? What do you feel like it's going to be really good in? What do you feel it's not going to be very good in? Let me know what you all think in the comments down below. And as always, be kind to one another, say hi to your neighbor, and know that the Lord Jesus Christ is our only means of salvation.